Hello everybody, welcome back. Today we're discussing a biography. We're looking at The Surreal Life of Leonora Carrington by Joanna Moorhead, a book that was only published a couple of months ago. If you don't know who Leonora Carrington was, she was a surrealist artist, an artist of the big surrealist movement that emerged in the 1930s. And not just was she a key figure in the movement, but as a female artist and as a woman, she was very much a figurehead for the women artists and female artists who have all followed suit. Leonora Carrington is a woman with an extraordinary history, and she's a big personality. So I was really excited to see this book. I didn't even know it had been published. I saw it as I was wandering through Waterstones, and had I known it had been published, I would have picked it up straight away, because she was a larger than life character. Many anecdotes of her crazy behaviour. Yes, big personality. But what's interesting about this book is that it's actually written from a family member's point of view, because Joanna Moorhead is a distant cousin of Leonora. However, Joanna didn't realise she was related to Leonora Carrington until the last few years of Leonora's life. She died a few years ago in Mexico City. And this book follows a series of interviews that Joanna had with her cousin Leonora in the last few years of her life. And those interviews, that time she spent with Leonora, went from a few days to a couple of months she would spend at a time out in Mexico City, and also bolstered by some research also. But what this is, it's an account of Leonora's life through Leonora's eyes. Leonora, like I said, an amazing life. She was born in 1917 to British high society. She was from the mega rich. Her parents were the nouveau riche, and she was a debutante at the royal court, you know, mixing in those kind of circles. But she was also a rebel, and in the 1930s her parents really didn't know what to do with this rebel, so they indulged her passion for art, thinking it would just be, you know, passing interest, and they could deal with this odd character, this daughter who was rebelling from what the plans they had laid out for her. However, as she was working in art and as she was developing her skills, she met Max Ernst, who's an artist twice her age and a big surrealist artist. The two fell madly in love, and they fled together to Paris in the 1930s. A very passionate couple, big scandal, and her family were appalled and they cut her off. However, hanging out, so, you know, Leonora's all in love, but however, hanging out with a German artist in 1930s Paris isn't the greatest thing. So even though they were having dinner and lunch with the likes of Dora Maar, Lee Miller, Pablo Picasso, it was obviously a very dark era. The Nazis came in and took over France, occupied Paris, which sent Max and Leonora on the run. And this is very much the story of how Leonora and Max escaped through France, and then Max was arrested, so Leonora had to go on without him through Franco's Spain, out to Portugal, which was like the Casablanca to get to the States, you know, the port, the escape out of Europe, out of the war to get to the other side. She had an arranged marriage so she could get her passport to New York, and then she fled down to Mexico, where she spent the rest of her life. So this is an extraordinary account of a woman who encountered and overcame many obstacles. Because this is a very personal account, you feel very much this is far more biography about Leonora's life than Leonora's art. So there's lots of the hurdles of being, you know, cut off from your family, from your loneliness, being abandoned by men. Max, even when he was released, left her for Peggy Guggenheim. So very complicated. She had several nervous breakdowns when she was on the run, and really had to find strength from within to overcome and survive. Like I said, this is a book mostly about her private life rather than her art. I mean, there are some plates, some images in the book of her art, but really this doesn't focus or showcase who she was as an artist and how big and influential and the development of her style and all that. This really is the story of a woman. Some of the anecdotes have been, more salacious anecdotes have been pared down. For example, Leonora had dozens of lovers and they're not really mentioned. They're focused on her major relationships and her marriages. And that's fine. What I particularly liked about this, though, was the extent to which this is Leonora's story. Occasionally that comes a cropper sometimes when you feel like some of Leonora's recounting of particular incidences has changed and been adapted over time to favour herself. I think a particular one is one of the artists, I think it was Picasso, but I'm not sure it was, told her to go and get him a pack of cigarettes, and the apparently the incident was that she went and did get the packet of cigarettes, but now the story is that she refused point blank to be told around by a man what to do. So yeah, so some of the legends and myth making has been shaped over time, but this was a really beautiful book. I particularly found the scenes of her waiting in Lisbon, and that whole pressure cooker of desperately trying to get across the Atlantic to safety, particularly touching. Her nervous breakdowns are very affecting, very scary. And this is a woman who was so committed that she never went back to England. I mean, at any point in that process, she could have gone back home and begged her parents for safety, and she probably would have got it, and of course they would have supported her and never wanted to see her in danger. But once she fled England, she never looked back. This is a woman who always looked forward, and that is pivotal to understanding not just who she is as a woman, but why she is such a major figurehead for female artists today. So committed she was to her passion in life that whatever came her way, she was determined to overcome it. And it's a beautiful book, a great introduction to Leonora Carrington, The Surreal Life of Leonora Carrington by Joanna Moorhead.